And it's lights out, and away we go!
If there's one thing that everybody loves to do while watching F1, it's to second guess what the teams and drivers are doing right in the thick of the action. Admittedly, this is usually when Ferrari make yet another completely baffling strategy call and throw away any hope of a good finish, but there's always something significant that happens during a race, whether it's a particular event or a decision, and then the ripple effect through the rest of the race. One team or driver will lose out while another will succeed. Enter F1 Manager 2023, Frontier's second crack at the motorsport management sim, and this comes with more of this wish fulfillment than you can shake a wheel gun at. The most direct example of this is the new Race Replay mode, which adds mid-race scenarios based on real race events and situations, and then tasks you with trying to rewrite or correct history, a bit like Formula 1 Quantum Leap. We went hands-on with the scenario for the Monaco Grand Prix, where the burning question on everybody's lips following that race was whether Aston Martin threw away Fernando Alonso's chance of leapfrogging Max Verstappen when they pitted first to slick tyres and then to Inters a lap later. What if they went just straight to Inters? Would they have won the race? Now everybody has concluded that yes, with Max Verstappen making that mistake on his in-lap, they almost certainly would have, so this scenario is maybe not the best example of what Race Replay can offer. It's just so cut and dried that Alonso going straight to Inters and then banging in a fast lap while Verstappen has his mistake-ridden in-lap would have almost certainly led to a race win, especially given how nigh on impossible it is for an on-track overtake between leading cars at Monaco. So in my particular attempt, I effectively made that call as soon as I had to. I told Alonso to push, and then I set the game to sim race at 16 times speed, occasionally dipping into Lance Stroll's race to see if I could nudge him up the order instead. One funny occurrence here though was that Max Verstappen did mess it up on the final lap and banged into a wall, retiring from the race. And this was not something that would happen for every single person. What I'd really hope for here is that other scenarios can provide more nuanced situations, where perhaps there's a DRS train, as in the recent Canadian Grand Prix, and so there could be a call to pit early and then either try to eke out a one-stop race or push hard and two-stop it. Maybe we'll see if Ferrari were right not to pit under the safety car in Canada, or manage George Russell's comeback drive, before his eventual retirement of course. A single switch flip puzzle solution isn't quite so interesting as more of the grey areas of race management. Beyond that, F1 Manager 23 is still all about the fantasy of managing a team through the career mode, with all of the decision making that this entails. Frontier has sought to make a good few steps forward here with things like being able to plan the pit crew's monthly training regime, down to scheduling morning and afternoon sessions for different elements as specific as putting a tyre on. For some reason they were actually practicing putting a tyre on before they were practicing taking them off, which is something that I quickly rectified just because it felt like the right thing to do. The pit crew's performance will also be improved by the new sporting director role. All of that then goes hand in hand with enhancements to driver and staff development in general. And rounding out the between race elements, you'll now have to factor the cost cap into your decision making, and there's weight to account for within your car's development. Of course, that F1 Team Boss fantasy remains being mainly about what happens out on track for most people. Stepping into Toto Wolff's shoes for the British Grand Prix, I got to grips with leading Lewis Hamilton and George Russell through practice sessions, qualifying and into the race itself. Through the first practice session, a few long stints helped them get to grips with the car setup, and I had to then make tweaks to a handful of car elements to get things right into the sweet spot for what they wanted to get out of the car, this feeding into their confidence in the car and its general abilities through the rest of the week. This is going to be pretty tough to get perfect for sprint race weekends, that is for sure. On this occasion though, then it was into the crunch time of qualifying, and it was a hazy, rainy day. It was a struggle to get the pair on track, on the right tyres and at the right time. And in the end, I kind of messed it up. George was out of the running in Q1, but Lewis managed to pull it out of the bag to snatch a third place on the grid before the rain came during Q3. So, because of this, I had two very, very different races to prepare. Decided to put Lewis on a medium hard one-stopper, while George could push to his heart's content with soft, medium. And so there are two very different races to manage here, especially as George was very quickly getting into the top 10, and Lewis's pace was really just not there, and he was sliding back into the field once they got their DRS on him. This brought the new driver confidence system into focus. George was riding high as it could tell him to push hard, overtake aggressively, and use the ERS to battle. And there was plenty of reward for this. He actually managed to get up ahead of Lewis by pulling this audacious double pass on him and Max Verstappen towards the end of the lap. He was up to P3 before the pit stops. But, of course, this was pushing his tyres hard, degrading them quicker than was ideal, and eventually, once I did bring him in for his first stop and he came out and he was pushing hard again, he overcooked it, span out, dropped a bucket load of time and places, and was effectively out of the running. But that then brought Lewis back into the picture. Having lost a position after position, his confidence was shot, but the strategy was coming back to him on that one stopper, picking up places as they pitted a second time, and he managed to finish a creditable 4th place. Throughout all of this, I was leaning on that fast forward button to skip to the good stuff, often sprinting through the race at 16 times real time, where all you really get is the track map and dots whizzing around it. However, if you do want to watch things in real time or double time, then you can do so with some pretty good 3D rendered action. I do hope though that some of the rougher edges here, like sparks flying in the wrong direction and cars snapping in slightly physics-defying fashion, can be buffed out in time for release at the end of July, but I do enjoy the overall look and the feel of the game. There's also a really great inclusion here of the visor cam, which has become a little bit overused during real broadcasts of the sport and obscures what you're actually trying to pay attention to in those situations. But here, where I'm just like soaking in all of the information, I've got the telemetry, I've got the detailed specifics right at hand, I could probably watch an entire race using this camera in-game. On the whole, it feels like F1 Manager 23 is taking a good few steps forward, building on the foundations of last year's first attempt. There's a flashy new game mode, there's a fancy new camera, and there's more options management and mid-race decision making to be done. Coming out at the end of July on the 31st of the month, it's also perfectly timed to fill the void that August always gives you for real-world F1 racing. We will obviously try to be back in that time window for the full review, but that's all that we've got for today. Hopefully you've enjoyed what you've seen, you found it nice and informative, and if you have done so, make sure to like, subscribe, all of the usual YouTube things, so that we will see you again next time we've got some videos up. And with that, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.